All right, welcome in everybody. Happy Monday. AP Top 25 Women's Basketball poll just dropped. We are here breaking down the news. Week one action is under our belts of women's college basketball. So excited. There's so much to talk about. I am Rachel Galligan alongside my co-host Aryeh Schwartz. Before we drop into the poll real fast, no big changes from the first top five. Before we jump in, Aryeh, how are you? How did you enjoy the first week of action?
I got to see some live action. I got to go to a game. Obviously, unfortunate for the players who didn't go to Germany for that classic, but lucky for me, I got a cheap ticket to go to an amazing game. It was beautiful to see. And to start off the season right, got me excited and ready for this weekly stream, but also this exciting WNBA, or sorry, college basketball season. I'm used to the pros.
Yeah, we're pivoting. We're in that transition period, right? I mean, there's a lot to talk about. Poll just dropped. This is just the very first in-season AP Top 25 poll. We did do a preseason poll a couple of weeks ago. Not a ton of movement this time of the year. You know, you see a lot of games where you got a good amount of blowouts, but we still had some great key matchups. Excited to talk about those and break down some of the upsets. A little bit of movement from the top five, as I said before. Everybody kind of stays the same. You got UConn at one, South Carolina two, UCLA three, Texas four, LSU at five. We got Washington that made an appearance into the poll this week, and Richmond dropped out. But the way we like to do this, again, we're going to be with you every Monday when this poll drops. Please be sure to join us all week. Share your thoughts into the chat box. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? Who are your favorite players? Who are your favorite teams? We want to hear from you and everything you guys have to say. Let's dive in. No massive surprise here. We've got UConn coming in at number one. They received 30 of the votes for number one, and pretty, self-explanatory. Let's recap. They beat Louisville 79-66. Sarah Strong looked dominant as always. I know that's a player, Aria, that you're really high on. She had 21 and 9 rebounds, 5 assists in that game. It's incredible how versatile she is. That's a player we're going to be talking about for a very, very long time. Then they turned around and beat Florida State 99-67. Strong again had 21 points and 9 rebounds. AZ Fudd continues her hot streak, continues to look dominant, especially from her elevating her play in the NCAA tournament last year. She had 23. This week, they will play Loyola Chicago, and a matchup I'm really looking forward to is Ohio State. Ohio State not ranked, but historically, as we know, this is a program that has been very dominant, and I would not be surprised if they sneak into that top 25 poll as we get deeper into the season. Number two, South Carolina received 2 first place votes. They're 2-0 on the season so far. They whooped up on Grand Canyon, former assistant Winston Gandy, 94-54. Really cool that, Grand Canyon was able to make that trip back to South Carolina and kind of just have that reunion with his former boss, Dawn
Mhm.
Staley. Then they turned around and beat Bowling Green 114-47. Some of these scores, I mean, we're going to say some scores like a lot of teams dropping over 100 marks, especially Oklahoma State. I'll get to them in a little bit. But really impressed with just the start of South Carolina. Edwards had 24 points in that game versus Bowling Green. The Gamecocks will play tomorrow night hosting Clemson on ESPN2. That's a game, Aria, you're looking forward to.
Oh, most definitely. You got to keep an eye on that one. Anytime you get a rivalry, obviously it's a little bit lopsided, but anytime you get an opportunity to watch a college rivalry, tune in, make sure you check it out.
Yep, check out that one on ESPN2. Number three, UCLA. 2-0 on the season. They beat San Diego State 77-53. Then they beat up on UC Santa Barbara 87-50. They will play tonight. This is one of our premier games of the week. Make sure you guys are tuned in. Monday night in women's basketball is always historically a key night, some great matchups. That's a top 10 matchup. So you got to make sure you turn into that one on FS1. Really looking forward to this UCLA team being tested. And that's kind of what this preseason is about, right? Like, before these teams get into conference play, they're going to have a mix of mid-major competition. Some are going to play Division twos. Some are going to, be in kind of these lineups or these different shootouts where they're going to play top ranked competition. So you really got to be focused in the month of November, especially before Thanksgiving and the Thanksgiving tournaments. When are these key matchups when we can see
Mhm.
a top team, a top 10 matchup be tested? We saw one earlier this week with Baylor and Duke. We'll talk about that a little bit. But I mean, I'm excited for tonight because I think UCLA is a team that, yeah, they had a lot of changes in the offseason. They lost a lot of players, but they still returned Lauren Betts. You still have Kiki Rice. You've got a lot of players on that roster that are incredibly dominant. And I think they can very easily make a run back into the Final Four. Oklahoma, we'll talk about them in a little bit, but Aaliyah Chavez, obviously the number one player in the country. That's a player that we're looking out for. Aria, who we got coming in at 4?
Number 4, we got Texas. They beat Incarnate Word 123-51, and then beat Richmond 85-56. Richmond always a team. Yes, they normally are ranked a little bit lower if they make it in the top 25, but it's definitely a team we will talk about throughout this season. You cannot sleep on them. Madison Booker just really going off early this season. 25 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists. The Longhorns played tonight hosting Louisiana. Obviously, don't have my eyes on that game, but I do am very much focused on Booker and what she's going to be producing throughout this season. Number 5 coming in, LSU. Again, no movement in these early teams. LSU beat Houston Christian 108-55. Fuwiley had 21 in her debut. Then they beat Southeast Louisiana 115-26, held them to just 2 points in the second quarter, which is just absurd. Flagey had 17 points, beat Georgia Southern. I mean, these numbers that teams are putting up early in the season are just ridiculous. 118-70. Fluwiley had 19, 7, and 3. LSU will take on Charlotte this week on the 12th. Obviously, if you follow LSU, you know it's going to be a little bit of time till we get those intense games. But definitely something to keep your eye on. This team has brought in a lot of talent during the offseason. And even before that, we're a team competing for a national championship in many people's eyes.
All right, checking in with the chat box. I don't think any team is going to go undefeated this year. There's going to be so much parity. I agree with you.
Same.
I would be curious, who's your number one? Who do you think is going to take it all? And who do you think is the biggest challenge to UConn based on their schedule? That's a little bit of a question for you guys. And then a little bit of comment about Jazzy Davidson. We'll talk about USC here shortly. My hot take, UConn Huskies in South Carolina goes undefeated in the regular season. Okay, we got a lot of thoughts in the chat. I think that is very possible as well. But again, I do love the parity. Let's get back to the poll. Oklahoma coming in at number 6. As we said before, this is a team that's playing tonight against UCLA. Going to be really interesting to see that top 10 matchup. You haven't had a ton of those in the first 8 days of the season, so I cannot stress enough how important that game is. But Oklahoma beat Belmont 84-67. Beers had 29 and 10. Aaliyah Chavez in her debut had 16 points tonight. Okay, now we get into a little bit of the parity. Baylor, big story of the week. They're up 9 spots. Baylor kicked off the season with a bang. They beat number 7 Duke in Paris. That was their first top 10 win since December of 2023. Then they turned around yesterday and beat Lindenwood 76-63 in their home opener. Bella Fauntleroy had 26 points. Talia Scott had 29 in that game. Talia Scott, I think, in my opinion, that hasn't been released from Big 12. I think she's got a potential to have Big 12 Player of the Week honors. We know Talia Scott can really score the basketball. We know Baylor has a bunch of key returners, but they also brought in some really heavy hitter transfers. Talia Scott is one of those. And so Baylor's a team. They're really intriguing to me. Obviously, going out, playing in Paris, beating Duke, that is huge. That puts this team on the map to some degree. But clearly, there's still a lot that needs to be proven when it comes to Baylor this earlier in the season. They got a big test this week. They're going to head to Las Vegas to beat a tough UNLV team, to face a tough UNLV team. Lindy LaRock does a phenomenal job. That is a heck of a test, heck of a mid-major test for Nikki Collin. They're going to play them on the 14th, and then they're going to host Lemoyne on Sunday. All right, number 8, USC. Let me pull up my notes here. USC is up 10 spots. That is quite a jump. They started out the season, beat New Mexico State 87-48. Then they had a huge win. Sorry, RA. I know this hurts your soul a little bit. Huge win over number 9 ranked NC State yesterday, 69-68. Big story there was freshman Jazzy Davidson, 21 points, 5 blocks, 3 steals. It was a 1-point game, really came down to the wire. A lot of people questioned this USC team with obviously Juju Watkins being out this season and being injured. To be determined, I think, you bring in a superstar recruit in Jazzy Davidson, and obviously she hit the ground running. Impressive win for USC. I'm excited to kind of see what this team can do. They're going to face South Carolina on Saturday. So, that is a massive matchup that, we all are going to be tuned into. Number 9, Maryland is up 1 spot. They beat Loyola Maryland 80 to 26. Then they beat UMBC 87 to 54, beat Georgetown 85 to 66. Mac had 23 points in that game. We'll face Towson and Princeton on Sunday. All right, REA, I'm going to hand off number 10 to you because I know you love talking about the Wolfpack.
Look, they beat Tennessee, and honestly, they've had one of the harder schedules to start off this season, if we're being realistic. So they win that game to start off the season 80-77. Trigger had 19 and 8, a game with 15 lead changes, but then lost to number 18 USC, no longer number 18 after that win. They lose by one. Zoe Brooks had a near triple double with 24 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 assists. And what she's been doing, that isn't a one-off game either. We've seen her grow throughout her career. She's now in her junior season, and I expect big things from the guard in this season. The Pack will take on Maine and rank TCU on Sunday. That TCU game, I know Rachel and we might have to put a little money on it, maybe a little candy bet or something. Loser has to jump in a pool. I don't know, something, but it's going to be a good one. Make sure you tune in for that. Who do we got coming in? Oh, we got another North Carolina. North Carolina coming in at 11th. They did not move at all. They beat North Carolina Central 90-42, and they beat Elon 71-37 early in this season. No movement so far. Who comes in at 12 right now?
Coming up at 12 is Tennessee. Obviously took that loss earlier on in the season. It's interesting. NC State, I was curious how the voters were going to gauge the beating and Tennessee and then that loss, but they only dropped down one spot. Tennessee, because of that loss, dropped down 4 spots. So they go from 8 to 12. The loss to NC State, Talaysia Cooper, she looked great in that game, a near triple-double with 23 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists. They responded, then they beat East Tennessee 98 to 47. Spearman had 24 points in that game. And then they beat UT Martin 72 to 61 on Sunday. The lone game of the week, a lot of teams load up and they play a tough schedule, like 3 games in the first week, and then you see the second week is a little more practice time, and they might just have one game. This is what Tennessee's doing. They're just going to face Belmont this week. So I'm excited about this Tennessee team. Obviously, their brand of basketball, we've all talked about it. The hockey subbing, the 5 in, the 5 out. The way they can turn teams over, the pace that they play with is incredibly interesting. If you haven't had a chance to check out Kim Caldwell and her squad at Tennessee. Very fascinating basketball. Love watching it. Okay, coming in at number 13, we've got Ole Miss. Ole Miss, Ari, why don't you take it? I know you like talking about Coach Yo.
They're a fun team. You know what you're going to get from them, but obviously they've had some player movement over this offseason, so I'm excited to kind of get an understanding of this new roster. They beat Norfolk State 87-46, 4 players in double figures. Obviously, something you want to see in the past. The offensive production has been a little bit of the question mark with this team. They beat Alabama A&M 84-45 on Friday. Cody McMahon had 22 points. That's a big addition to this team, especially offensively. And then coming in, I'm going to step away for this other Midwest team, Rachel, because there's a little bit of rivalry there, but whatever. Michigan coming in at 14th, down 1 spot. Tell me about Michigan.
Yeah, Michigan beat Canisius on Tuesday, 100-40, a game that they should win, in my opinion. Then they beat Harvard, 84-55. Holloway had 17 points in that matchup. Big test coming up this week. They're going to face Notre Dame on Saturday. So I think we're going to learn a lot about both of those teams. And just in terms of that matchup, Notre Dame having to reload in the offseason, Michigan continuing to prove why they are a top 25 team, not even top 25, a top 15 team, arguably trying to make their note as a top 10 team. But that's going to be an opportunity for the Wolverines nonetheless. Let's take a look in the chat box. UConn looks good. Strong is my favorite player right now. Huge fan. She has no weakness. I have to agree with you. I mean, yeah, it's hard to believe that she's still so young as well. Every time I watch her, you're like, she really can play she can play any position on the floor. She can facilitate. It's unbelievable. So I completely agree. Sarah Strong, one of the best players in women's
Rachel,
college
I'll add to
basketball.
that. The
Go
thing
ahead.
that's most impressive to me about her game is we talk about the offense and her versatility offensively. Her ability to get out to the perimeter and defend shooters on the perimeter is so impressive. Her speed, you're not going to get a mismatch on this UConn roster and take advantage of that. So often, that is something teams are going to try and hone in on, and that's just not an option. Her defensive ability is just so impressive. And to see her in person, I was blown away. I was texting you a ton. None of my texts went through, but bad signal. But so impressive to see her. I'm with you on this.
Well, the cool thing about UConn is you always have some early season tests in the non-conference because of the conference, and so love seeing you get a really good taste of what a UConn team really looks like because obviously they're going to schedule tough in the non-conference. They have to. They're the reigning national champions, and so some of these teams, we're going to go through the next couple of weeks being like, okay, they haven't really been tested. We haven't seen a true test or what this team is legitimately look like. That's what November's kind of all about. That's when Thanksgiving gets really fun, and everyone has to get their Flow Sports apps, and we have to watch games on these outlandish different kind of platforms. But you start seeing real tests with a lot of these programs later into the month of November. Coming in at 15, Duke is down 8 spots. They were 7 previously before. No big surprise here because of that loss to Baylor in Paris. I think the question mark with Duke has always been, not always, recently been the question mark of their offensive production is still a little bit of concern. Can they get out of the 40s and find ways to be scoring in the 70s? We know that was a defensive chess match between Baylor and Duke in Paris, but Duke's offensive production from the start, I was looking at some comments from everybody during that game and just kind of questioning, okay, like, again, credit Baylor because that defense was phenomenal to hold them, to such a low amount of points. But can Duke take that next step? I have a lot of faith in Kara Lawson and her program. I'm not super concerned. That's a tough matchup to kick off the season. They responded. They beat Holy Cross 91-48. Fournier had 27 points and 8 rebounds. She's just phenomenal. I think she's going to have such a great year. This week they will take on Norfolk State. And then a very tough West Virginia team on the 14th, and then Liberty on Sunday. So this is a big week for Duke women's basketball. West Virginia historically has been ranked. They lost J.J. Quinterly, who made a roster spot with the Dallas Wings. So West Virginia, that is no joke. That is going to be a very, very good test with their defensive pressure that they bring into the full court. Number 16, Iowa State, down 2 spots. It's not necessarily because they did anything wrong. I just think it just happened that sometimes, the teams around them just had better wins, losses, whatever, and they kind of had a little bit of an earlier slate. They beat St. Thomas, Minnesota by a ton. Audie had 20 in that game. Audie Crooks continues to be
Beast.
one of the best faces of women's basketball, in my opinion. Shout out Audie Crooks. Then they turned around and they beat Southern 85-58. Audie had 29 and 14 in that game, and then they beat Sacred Heart yesterday 99-34. Audie had 21 in that game, continues to be one of the premier scorers in all of college basketball. This week, still kind of easing into it. Their schedule picks up a little bit when they start paying the really good Iowa teams, but they're going to play Valpo and Norfolk State this week. So Iowa State dropping down 2 spots, but it's not because they did anything wrong. TCU coming in at 17, very interesting team. They beat North Carolina A&T 82-43. Big name there was Marta Suarez. Everyone talks about Olivia Miles. There's obviously a ton of talent on this TCU team. I think people are sleeping a little bit on Marta Suarez. Not for long. She had 19 in that game. Miles had 16. Then they beat Sam Houston last night, 88-46 on Sunday. Olivia Miles, 22 points, 9 assists, and 4 steals. I'm excited to watch this team. It's a lot of new faces and a lot of really elite transfers who've come into the program. But I really do believe when Mark Campbell says this team has an opportunity to be better than the team last year, that's a big take. And that's saying a lot. But this is going to be a big week because they're going to host Tennessee State. And then, as you said before, next Sunday, they will play NC State. That is a big test. We're going to find out for real both of these programs this year. Early on in the season, TCU's had success in the past. What's that going to look like this year? And is this team? It's one thing to beat, North Carolina A&T, Sam Houston, but what are they going to do against a tough NC State team? All right, who do we have coming in at 18?
Coming in at 18, down 3 spots, Notre Dame, obviously a new look Fighting Irish, beat Farley Dickinson 98-52. Hidalgo had 27. Then they beat Chicago State 116-58. I gotta say, I do not remember a week period where we had this many triple-digit scoring performances. It is super impressive. Hidalgo goes off in that game for 32 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists. Will face off Akron and ranked Michigan on Saturday. And I think the key thing, the storyline with Notre Dame is, what is this team? Before they had a plethora of stars. And yes, Hidalgo was kind of the face, the person putting up those big, haughty numbers.
And
But
she will
now,
continue to be.
and she definitely will continue to be, but there is a lot more pressure, a lot more weight on her shoulders this year. What are we going to see as this season goes on? It's going to be extremely interesting because it's no longer a three-headed beast. Now it is a one-headed monster. There isn't a good term for that. I don't have a better saying. Rachel, who's
I
coming in
know.
next?
No, I just want to make a quick comment about Notre Dame. Interesting transfer out of Kansas State, Gisela Sanchez. I want to really make note of. She's an experienced, long, big wing out of Spain who has a lot of college basketball experience under her belt. Started Arizona, went to Kansas State, now playing in a much more vital role for the Irish. Going to be really interesting to see how she does this year and if she can continue to be an impact player. They need her after the loss of Koval and Miles in the offseason. Okay, number 19, Vanderbilt. Kind of a slower week, only had one game, but they did beat Cal 74 to 65. Michaela Blake's had 27. How many times, under over, how many times is Michaela Blake's going to break 40 this year?
I mean, uh, that's such a tough, I'm a bad bettor. I can't bet because I always like, I want to win, but then I want to bet more so that I win more. I'm bad at that. 15.
Now, Michaela Blake's phenomenal. I think, yeah, she's unbelievable. If you haven't had a chance to watch Vanderbilt and Michaela Blake's, make sure you check it out. You're going to have an opportunity tonight. Vandy's going to play at home against Furman in just their second game of the year. Coming in at number 20, Oklahoma State up 2 spots. Talking about scoring, okay, some of these numbers, and I understand that, like, they're not the most difficult opponents here, but what J.C. Hoyt has established at Oklahoma State is incredibly impressive from their scoring production, okay? They start out the season, they beat New Orleans 109-48. Then they beat East Texas A&M 97 to 59. Haley Timmer went for 6 of 7 from the three-point line. Then in a back-to-back, they played one night, played the next night, beat Langston Big 105 to 35. 4 games in 1 week. Just so you know. And I understand this isn't the toughest competition, but you're still putting up these types of numbers in such a short amount of time. Girardi, who went off in that game. 29 points, hit 9 threes, broke a school record for made threes at Oklahoma State. And then yesterday beat Oral Roberts 112 to 62. Achola Kott had a career night with 23 points, 10 rebounds. I understand you guys. I understand. But Oklahoma State's averaging 106 points per game right now. They're shooting at 43% from the three-point line. A very interesting team. There is so much offensive firepower. And we haven't even talked about Staley Hurd, who personally is one of my favorite players in all of college basketball. So if you haven't had a chance to check out the Cowgirls, please do. They will play Prairie View A&M this week. Obviously, a little bit of a slower week for the program after such a busy and hectic first week. Coming in at 21, Iowa, no movement. They beat Southern 86 to 51. Then they beat Evansville 119 to 43. What are your thoughts on Iowa?
I mean, they set a school record for most points scored by their women's basketball team of their school, which is just
Wow.
absurd considering who they've had on this team just recently in the past couple of years. I don't need to drop names. Everyone knows who I'm talking about. Her name is on the court. Just insane, ridiculous. Yes, again, we're not talking about the top tier talent and that, the top tier competition, and that's okay early in the season for these teams, but they are producing, they're getting the job done against who they're playing. And look, those well-known players who have graduated into the pros or onto bigger and better things also played against, these lower competitions, as it were, and weren't putting up those points. So a really good sign for this team to continue the legacy of women's basketball that they've already started.
All right, you take 22.
Coming in at 22, Louisville. Obviously, I was there for the loss against UConn. It was a big loss, 79-66. But I will say in the fourth quarter, they pulled it within 10. So that was an impressive run late in the game. Ziegler had 16 and 18. Ridiculous stat line to be putting up against that type of competition. The transfer out of St. Joseph, originally from Denmark, then beat Northern Kentucky 89-61. Roberts had 23 points. Will face Colorado and Clemson coming up in the near future this week. But honestly, Louisville is a team that I'm excited about because they have individual players that were really fun to watch. It's going to take some time for this team to kind of form and mold into like a team. but at the same time, really fun to watch some of these individual players get a little hot streak there. There's some growing pains, yes, but there are some players that are definitely going to make me watch more Louisville games this season.
Well, I mean, you can never sleep on Louisville. There's such a rich history there, from their NCAA deep NCAA tournament runs, Final Four runs, NCAA championship game runs, and so Jeff Walz has built a culture of excellence there at Louisville. They're always going to find ways to be competitive and to remain in that top 25. I do believe this is the type of team that can go toe to toe with anybody in the country. All right, coming in at 23, right down the road, the blue team, Kentucky. They're up one spot coming in at 23. They beat Morehead State 75-59, turn around and beat Monmouth 104-46. And then they beat Buffalo yesterday 81-47 on Sunday. I think the big storyline here, good start to the season. You expect them to win those games. Clara Strack went off 27 points, 12 rebounds, and 4 blocks. I think the question is with Kentucky, we've become so accustomed with Kenny Brooks' system with a Georgia Amore running the show. And it's not just losing, okay, your leading scorer, you're losing your floor general, a coach on the floor. So how does Kentucky, obviously they're killing it in recruiting. They're doing a great job of bringing in great talent. But what is the ceiling for this team this year? To be determined. I'm not sure. But it definitely is encouraging to see Clara Strock going off and having that type of production. You take 24.
Coming in at 24, Michigan State down just one spot. There was one team that was knocked out. They whooped up on Mercyhurst on Tuesday, 125-39. They beat Eastern Michigan 92-60 and will face Youngstown and Western Michigan coming up. But also fun because, every time we do this, we kind of have our list, but then it's the teams that get knocked out, the teams that get to jump in. So I always get super excited when we talk about the other receiving votes, as you see on the screen now. But the teams that popped up this week, it was just Washington coming in at 25. Richmond obviously gets knocked out, but they did get 16 votes this past week. But an impressive win for the Huskies, 90-43 over the Seattle U. Redhawks, an impressive win, 18 points from Howell. Sellers had 21. They get 15 points off the bench from Harvey. Basically, everybody scored minus one player on their roster. So a nice start to the season. The Dogs are back in the top 25, as you're seeing right now. A fun start to the season, I think, because early on, we're going to see movement like that, right? We're going to see a team lose a step here, pop out of the 25. We're going to see a team make a big win and move into the 25. So that's always exciting. Rachel, we got a few before we close off in the chat. Can I throw some questions at you and see what your thoughts are?
Go ahead. Let's see.
Someone's got a hot take that Tennessee's only big win this season is UConn Huskies this season.
Interesting. I mean, we love a good UConn Tennessee matchup, obviously. There's there ever been anyone who doesn't love that matchup. Okay. I don't know. I don't see it happening. I'm taking UConn in that game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. But then another Tennessee discussion. How do you beat a team that plays in the fashion that Tennessee does? Rachel, we have talked about this so much last year. Obviously, we're going to be talking about it again this year. Put on your coaching hat and break down the game plan. What's the scout?
Well, what Tennessee is going to do is they're going to try to just wear you down. They've got to be in tremendous shape. They've got 5 players subbing in and out every few minutes, which is really unique. Nobody else plays like this in the country at this level. And so one of the biggest things you got to do is your transition defense has got to be elite. And you have to take care of the basketball. They want to be disruptive. They want to turn you over. And they're going to take very, very fast shots within the shot clock. So they're not going to, when they come down and they're going to jack a shot, you've got to keep them at one and done. So you got to do a great job on the glass. You got to block them out. You got to secure those rebounds and don't give up a lot of offensive rebound opportunities. Not that they're going that hard, but it's about volume. Tennessee is trying to shoot 20 to 25, 30 extra shots than their opponents are taking. So what you want to try to do is contest those shots, have great elite transition defense, understand personnel and tendencies, and you want to try to get them to function in the half court, slowing down the game as much as possible. Why TCU over Notre Dame? I mean, listen, the storyline there, I mean, pretty interesting. I think TCU, they beat them twice last year. I don't want to sit here and say they have their number, but I mean, They kind of might right now. It'll be interesting. I mean, Olivia Miles, you've got TCU is the oldest team in the country. I want to make that really clear in terms of just the minutes played and games played on this roster. I like the experience of TCU, and I think that they're going to continue to prove that over the course of the year. I do want to make one note back to Washington, which is a team that, interesting. I'm still learning. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm an expert. They're going to face Montana this week, but a big test facing Utah on Saturday
Hmm.
in Salt Lake City. That's a tough environment. In Utah, historically in the past, has been ranked. They teeter right around those types of 25 to 30. They have reloaded a little bit, but that's a good test to watch Washington early on in this season.
One more in the chat before we log off for the day. UConn repeats and AZ doesn't go to Dallas like everybody thinks. Well, that is going to be a lot of dependent on what happens in the draft lottery,
Yeah,
which we'll see what happens in that. There's a lot of, will the magic happen? Will there be
yeah.
conspiracy theorists and all that jazz? Much to discuss and much more basketball to be played before we even get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to talk about it, but until we know what the lottery order is and what the specific needs are, it's hard to even try to put our WNBA caps on and project one, two, three, four, five. All the mocks are great. We love the publicity, but it's really early, guys. It's so hard to do a mock, and trust me, I have my Bleacher Report mock out there. It's challenging to try to predict, but we will know later this month. The WNBA draft lottery happening. What is it? Next Sunday, I believe, in a
Is
couple
it
couple
that soon
weeks.
already? Yeah, it's
Couple
something
weeks,
like
yeah.
that. It's coming
They
up.
just announced that, so we will know that draft order in the end of November. Real quick, others receiving votes: Ohio State with 27, Princeton got 19, Richmond, who dropped out, they beat Mount St. Mary's. Maggie Dugan, that's their premier player. She had 28, 16 rebounds and 13 rebounds and 6 assists. Then they lost to Texas, which is I don't know. I don't know. That's an expected loss. Not really unexpected, but a great early season test. You got West Virginia, as I talked about before. That's a team that, has historically been in the top 25. I would not be surprised if they break into it. Kansas State receiving votes as well. Had a great buzzer beater game the other night against SMU. If you haven't had a chance to check that out, Gina Garcia, a freshman, hitting the buzzer beater at the end of the game. Unbelievable. You don't see that. Minnesota, South Dakota State, both receiving votes. Stanford, Columbia, Nebraska, Fairfield, and Kansas. Kansas have a top freshman in Jalea Davis, and then Samaya Nichols returning. Kansas, I think, has a chance to be pretty dang good this year as well. Before we wrap up, just a reminder: big games this week. Oklahoma, UCLA tonight. You got Notre Dame and Michigan, South Carolina, Clemson, North Carolina, UCLA Thursday. Big week for UCLA, and then TCU, NC State on Sunday. Anything from you, Aria, before we wrap up?
You know I got that TCU NC State game on, and we'll be back to chat about when the Wolfpack gets that victory, Rachel.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us. We will catch you next week, same time, same place. Enjoy the action this week. We'll talk to you soon.